Well, good evening, everybody. It's Chris here from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta. Back again. Second day in a row for two shows in one day. Can you believe it? Yeah, me neither. Anyway, we're a little bit late, so I'm going to get right to it. I've got Cam Davies with me this evening, and he's the leader of the Republican Party of Alberta. And as you may have seen on social media, Cam's been and is right now, I believe, in the United States, talking about Alberta independence, visiting friends, networking, that kind of thing. And he's also he's got a lot to say about what's going on in Alberta right now. And I always enjoy hearing from Cam because he is a true blue conservative on the outside of the current Conservative Party who's governing Alberta, the United Conservative Party. So he's aligned on a lot of things, but he's also critical, which is a good thing, I believe. I'm actually trying to bring on a few people outside of the folks that I usually talk to. One of them was Bonnie Critchley, believe it or not. I extended an invitation to have her on to talk about what her and Pete are up to with the newly named Alberta Progressive Tory Party or whatever. And I don't think she's going to join us, but Cam is, and he is backstage right now. We've been having a little bit of technical difficulties, but it seems like it's sorted out. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Cam Davies again to the it's just the Chris show right now. No Carrie. Maybe Carrie will be back soon.
Well, thanks for having me again, Chris. I appreciate you taking the time, and it's always good to chat with you and speak to the conservative audience that I know you have, and people that are aligned on the freedom and independence movement that we've been building collectively as Albertans over the last many years. And so appreciate you having me on, and look forward to a discussion tonight. And as you mentioned, I'm down in Phoenix right now for a large gathering of other Republicans, and connecting with lots of great friends and influencers in the American system and network down here, and advocating for Alberta. And I can tell you that we have raised the level of discussion in so much as the fact that there is a strong and growing movement in Alberta that wants to see Alberta independence, and that awareness has grown. I've been approached by a number of people down here already the last couple of days. Hey, you guys are really fighting for your independence. I saw you on Newsmax last week, and this is incredible. And we'd love to see a strong independent Alberta. I have yet to hear one person say, yeah, you guys need to become a 51st state. So I think we've tackled that. I've been having that conversation, and I've been letting Americans know that Texas was a great republic, and Alberta is going to be a great independent republic and a great neighbor to the north. We're America's our number one trading partner, and I think we can have a great friendship and relationship as an independent Republic of Alberta. Interestingly enough, Saskatchewan is getting a lot of attention down here, and so that question has come up often. And I'm consistently letting Americans know that if Alberta leads the way on independence, I'm sure Saskatchewan will follow, and we'll have an even larger republic. We may have to arm wrestle over what we call it at that point in time, if Saskatchewan wants to join us or not. But the Western Republic or something like that. I don't know, but it's been a great.
Not Saskberta or Alberta.
Yeah, Alsask. Yeah, I've actually been to Alsask, but we can have that debate later. I think the important thing right now is that we have to continue winning the hearts and minds, not only at home but abroad, and so that's what we're continuing to work towards. And groups like the Alberta Prosperity Project and other groups that are fighting the good fight and rallying Albertans behind independence. It's a monumental effort, and unfortunately, we're fighting against our own provincial government on this. It seems at every turn. So there's a lot of will allow you to take, you as in the independent movement will allow the independence movement to take one step forward, and then we'll claw you back two steps. So we're seeing a lot of that, and it's frustrating. It is frustrating. We're seeing cynical moves like potential snap elections before we get a referendum, and I think that would be a travesty if that were to happen. Not only does it risk handing the province over to the NDP because it's a cynical move a couple years into a term, but it also allows the large majority of the current UCP caucus, who is opposed to independence, to have that 4 or 5 year additional mandate from their constituents so that they're safe. And with that safety comes the ability and the inclination to not only campaign against independence, but do so with the feeling like they can't be touched because they've just won an election. So I'm laser focused on ensuring that we can prevent a snap election. I would rather there never be another provincial election in Alberta. I would
Beautiful.
like to see. I would like to see the next election in Alberta be a national election. I don't even. I don't even care to run in that election. I just want to see Alberta independence. That's what I'm fighting for each and every day. So I want to see Alberta independence, and anything and anyone that gets in the way gets in my crosshairs, politically speaking. So I think there's no sacred cows on this. If you're going to stand against Alberta independence, then you're putting a target on your back, because we have to be laser focused on this if we're going to succeed in it. We cannot have any sacred cows. We cannot say, well, I'm just deathly afraid of the NDP. Listen, for your audience that's watching this, if you are more afraid of the NDP than you are staying in Canada,
Oh, that's a
I'm
problem.
not sure that mindset will lead to independence. You need to
Yeah.
reflect on that. I think that collectively as Albertans, if we believe that the fear of an Nenshi government is to be feared more than staying in Canada a moment longer, we will lack the resolve that it will take to achieve independence. So I would just encourage those watching that we have to be laser focused on this.
I've started thinking about this a little bit differently lately. That watching the political stuff. Well, there's the tech thing again. Watching the political stuff happen around me has been very entertaining and educational. I've realized that trying to change the status quo is always going to be challenged by the people who benefit from it. So there's always that. So what I've started thinking lately is, the independence movement, in my opinion, we need to just keep on doing what we're doing and building that momentum, building that group, get the million signatures or more if we can. And, if we do that, we kind of render government almost irrelevant. Wouldn't you say? Like, if we have a group with hundreds of thousands of people that want to go in one direction, what's the government really going to do? Any government going to do to stop us? Especially considering that the United States is,
Yeah.
I would argue, eager to recognize an independent Alberta.
They are. I can tell you the conversations that I've had both with individuals in the Trump administration as well as individuals that have the ear of the current government in the United States and other governments. I had a great conversation with individuals from Argentina recently and individuals from El Salvador. So there's a growing number of conservative governments here in the Western Hemisphere that are very supportive of Alberta independence, and further abroad. Last summer, I was able to chat with some folks from Japan, from South Korea, from Sweden, and we have support abroad that there's a recognition that a federal government in Ottawa cannot hold us hostage any longer once we choose independence, and that's all we have to do. We just have to choose it. We have to be unafraid, and we have to have courage, and we have to be willing to do the difficult things and say, we want to be a free and independent people. And once we do that, we will be recognized. That courage will not go unnoticed, and it will not go unrewarded.
That's interesting that you said that, because my friend Thomas recently said that the separatists are just a bunch of angry white men armed to the teeth, like a small fringe minority kind of thing. But what you're saying is that the world is watching.
The world is watching, and our dear friend Thomas, I like to think of myself as a happy warrior, I'm fighting for independence with a smile. Am I armed to the teeth? Well, maybe not. But yeah, I don't think that's the type of fight that we're in. We are in the fight for hearts and minds, and this Christmas season, have those conversations at home. Have the conversations with people who are on the fence.
Be
Uh,
that guy.
be that
Yeah.
guy. Get outside your bubble. I think it was the Rise of Alberta X account had a funny AI video. You know, be that guy. Go to the family Christmas dinner parties and have the conversation. You know, why are we still in Canada? You know, just yesterday there was a $1 billion clawback from the Canadian pension plan tossed into the general revenue slush fund. I think one of the most challenging conversations that we experienced this latest round of by-elections this spring was was over the pension plan and
The hands off
seniors.
our pension.
Yeah,
Hands off.
seniors being fearful. And the reality is your pension is not safe in Canada.
Mhm.
They're taking your pension dollars and they're putting it into their slush fund. Um, it's not something that you can count on if we stay in Canada. We need an Alberta pension plan immediately. And this is something, and I just point this out to the audience, Chris, that look, we elected a leader of the UCP. I was instrumental in that leadership race. I signed up thousands and thousands of UCP members to vote for the current premier. And I did so because we were campaigning on what I thought was a sovereignty act and an inclination that we would have a government finally that would begin to implement the things that were constitutionally permissible immediately as a bridge or a stepping stone towards independence.
Mhm.
Our pension plan, immigration, our police force, our own tax collection. The current government has a mandate to do those things, not to talk about them, not to ask for more referendums on those things, but to do them.
Yeah.
And instead, today, the current government announced we're going to have more referendum questions. And so there might be 5 or 6 questions on the ballot come this next October that muddy the water, that confuse voters, not compliant with a singular question, and allow for the anti-independence faction here in Alberta to further muddy the waters, confuse, and outright spread misinformation and disinformation about what Alberta independence looks like. And so we're not only fighting the Thomas Lakaziks of the world in this independence fight, but we're fighting a government that frankly wants to muddy the waters, and that's a challenge. We have to overcome that.
You know, I've heard that quite a bit. There's my circle of friends are split 50-50 on whether they believe the government is trying to muddy the waters, or I've been more on the side of they're not as brave as I thought. You know, one of the questions that was asked of Danielle Smith when she was campaigning was, "Are you going to govern on principle, or are you going to govern on polls?" And she said principle. And when I heard that, that was pretty exciting, because that was like the, you know, the Iron Lady moment for Alberta. You're going to govern on principle. You're going to do the hard things and not mess around. Great. Um, and now when I saw the idea of having a referendum to ask Albertans whether or not they want to eject illegal immigrants from a province, I'm puzzled as to why it's even a question that has to be asked to Albertans. Like, do you want us to enforce the law? Well, the laws are there so that our hospitals aren't overrun, our schools aren't overrun. We can access the services we need. The safety net social services that are in place are effective, and so it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we enforce
I'm
that law,
sorry, Chris.
right?
It is, and I don't use this word lightly, but the notion that we have an illegal problem with immigration in Alberta is ludicrous. The problem that we have is for the last 2.5 years, we've had a so-called conservative government that has been led by an individual who has openly called for opening the floodgates of immigration to expanding Alberta's population to 10 million people by 2050, recently called for the expansion of Red Deer's population to 1 million by 2050. We don't have an illegal immigrant problem in Alberta. We have governments that have made so-called legal immigration an open door policy. That has to end. We do not need mass migration. We need remigration. We have an infrastructure deficit in this province. You've got, and I sympathize with the teachers. Both my parents were teachers. But when you have classrooms with 65 to 70 students, that is not education, that is babysitting. When half your classroom cannot speak English, when you have four or five students that have special needs or educational learning impediments, your children are not getting education in a classroom with one teacher, maybe a teacher's aide, and 65 to 70 students that half don't even speak English. We have a mass immigration problem in this province, and it has been made worse by a provincial government that has called for the open door. And they've done that.
I've had some heated debates with people over this. I don't share that sentiment completely. However, it ends up at the same place. What I heard is this is the trajectory we're on, and we best get building now. I didn't hear that we want to double our population. I heard that this is where we're going. But regardless, immigration is one of the things that we've been asking the provincial government to take control of, and we could do it tomorrow without a referendum, without anything. We could have an Alberta immigration department. So if Danielle meant to say that we want to do this, or if what she was saying was it's happening, both courses require that Alberta take control, right?
That's right.
And so when you talk about muddy the water, I wonder, is this referendum on ejecting illegal immigrants muddying the water to the real problem, which is our government failing to take control of immigration and allowing the federal government to dump people on us?
Absolutely. If you choose to believe that the current leader of the UCP did not want mass immigration, that's fine. But the fact is we are part of a failed nation of Canada that wants mass immigration. And we have a provincial government that is choosing to abdicate responsibility that they could make a course correction on. They could control the immigration, and they could make a course correction so that we're not being flooded with numbers of people that our province cannot properly assimilate and absorb into our culture and our society. And that abdication of responsibility is all the more reason why we have to succeed in this fight for independence. We cannot go down with this sinking ship of Canada that wants open doors, open the floodgates of immigration. We can't do that. So we need to take control of immigration. It's not illegal immigration that's the problem. It is too much mass migration. We shouldn't have mass migration to begin with. The levels of immigration that have flooded into this province are unsustainable, and they've been unsustainable for 5 to 10 years plus. So if we see a problem, if a government sees a problem and fails to act, then they're not acting in the best interest of Albertans. And it's time we had a government in Alberta that starts to put Alberta first. And I'm hopeful that if we have a referendum on independence, that we'll be able to have that choice, that we have a government that says, okay, we're a nation now. You have no option. You have to put Alberta first. You can't be playing footsies with putting Canada first. This is an Alberta first jurisdiction.
Yeah. Every time anybody, especially conservatives, talks about immigration, immediately the xenophobe and racist comments come. But I want to remind people of something. Every time I talk, Cam, your screen goes dead. Your phone doesn't like me. I want to remind you guys of something. Mass migration isn't good for immigrants who want to come here to participate in the West either. Like, can you imagine giving up everything you have in your home country, selling all of your things to get enough money to come to Canada, freedom and opportunity, prosperity if you work hard, and watch what's going on right now? Like, imagine new Canadians that came here and opened businesses and work hard, not able to access the services that they should be able to, right? So this isn't just, this isn't just for natural born citizens in Canada or Alberta. this is a problem for people who migrated here with good purpose as well, right? It's not just the people who are here already.
And look, we after a certain percentage of increase in immigration, nobody's bringing schools, hospitals, and roads with them. They're not
Right.
bringing a doctor, in their suitcase with them. Hopefully, um, and so it does a disservice to people who did come here, um, 10, 15, 20 plus years ago, and when rates of immigration were manageable, and we could have the infrastructure, we could have the ability to absorb population increases. But that has not been the case for 10 years. And quite frankly, Chris, look, the left has been throwing around, oh, you're a racist, you're a xenophobe, as if it's some sort of thing. I just don't give a shit anymore. You can call me whatever the hell you want. The fact is I'm Alberta first, and if you want to call me names, you can go right ahead and do that. But if we don't start taking care of Alberta first, there's not been much left of Alberta to take care of.
Well, Europe, UK, they're about 2 years, 3 years ahead of us on this, and look what's going on there now. I mean, the people there, they tried to sound the alarm over the last few years. When I was in Holland, I had a really good conversation with Eva Vlodingerberg, and she shortly after she did a whole tour talking about what problems they're facing because they are majority immigrants in Europe now, and there's some big problems. The values and the values that built the society are not there anymore because the people don't share the values. So it's a problem. And you're right. We need to do something about it. I think it's a touchy subject for any government because government's scared of optics. They're scared of those ist words and the ob words or whatever. So oftentimes they don't want to talk about it. But if there's one or two people in that legislature bringing these things up, well, they have to listen to it and they have to hear it, and it can't be just brushed under the rug. So that brings up an important question. If you don't want to have another provincial election in Alberta, as I don't either, what is the Republican Party's job right now? What are you doing? What's the goal? What's the mission and vision?
So our mission right now is to continuing to advance Alberta independence. So we've said all along, we think the Alberta government has a mandate to call a referendum. There's enough people in this province that want it. It shouldn't take a petition to do that. If they want to play silly games and force a petition gathering, fine, we'll do that. But where we're going to draw the line in the sand, Chris, is if this current government is trying to ride the fence and trying to have their cake and eat it too, if they're looking to call a snap election prior to an independence referendum, I can tell you that I'm not somebody you want to play chicken with. We will run candidates in every seat in the province. And if this UCP government wants to run the math on a napkin pad of how many seats they think they can win with Republicans on the ballot running against UCP candidates, they're welcome to do so. But we want to see an independence referendum before there is any election in this province. We do not want to see another provincial election. We want independence, an independence referendum, and begin that negotiation with Canada immediately. And so the next election we want to see is an Alberta national election. And if the current government wants to play silly games, giving UCP MLAs 4 or 5 more years, the comfort and safety of winning a seat so they can openly campaign against independence, we're going to do everything in our power to stop that from happening.
Well, this is a pretty precarious situation. I think, the people have been pretty vocal that we want that referendum. We've been talking about it where the movement is building. And what do you think that Guthrie's new party is going to be any kind of a risk to the UCP as well?
Honestly, it depends on where they choose to run. I mean, I can tell you and your audience, I mean, the last provincial election, I was heavily involved in about 14 very key races. I brought in a team of about 40, 50 people in the last 2 weeks to swing 2 different Calgary ridings for the UCP in the last election. So we know where the pressure points are for the UCP. We know what seats that they narrowly held on to and how we were able to win them in the donut around Edmonton and in Calgary. And so if there's any inclination of a cynical play to protect their jobs, I am not interested in their jobs. I really don't care. All I care about is Alberta independence. And so when I see self-preservation taking front and center stage over putting Alberta first, the UCP is going to have a problem with me over that, and our party. We don't want to play these games. Sitting on the fence just gets you a bunch of slivers. So our role is to take away the wiggle room. We already have 2/3 or more of the UCP caucus who would, if given the opportunity tomorrow, would openly campaign against independence. They would
You
openly
think it's that
campaign
high?
against it. I think it's that high. I do.
That's interesting.
And so the question I would have is that what is there to gain from a snap election if the premier's office decides to do that? It's protecting power, protecting their jobs. Will they allow openly and vocal pro Alberta independence candidates to run for UCP nominations? I can tell you, based on what happened this summer with appointments, they probably won't. And so if a party is not willing to even allow individuals who openly want Alberta independence to run, don't you think they might campaign against it after you give them one more mandate?
Well, they could. I think honestly, I think it would be a huge mistake considering the amount of support the independence movement has. You know, I'm starting to realize that there's people in here that are the phrase vote split always comes up.
Oh, sure.
This sounds less to me like a vote split and more to me like just one more group is playing their part to funnel everything towards Alberta independence. Like it sounds to me like you're positioning yourself in the Republican Party as the or else, give the people their question or else.
Well, and that's a big part of it. We are the or else. And on the issue of vote splitting, Chris, I mean, look, we've talked about this ad nauseum over the summer. The fact is that the UCP leadership, not the members of the party, not the voters of that subscribe to the UCP party. I think 80% of UCP voters are pro-independence. But the leadership of the UCP has made it clear that they are pro-Ottawa, pro-federalist, pro the Smith-Carney coalition. That's where they've decided to stake their political turf. There is no vote splitting between the UCP and Republican Party of Alberta. There isn't, because we are a independence party. We are pro-Alberta first, and the UCP leadership has decided that the UCP is not pro-independence. They are pro-Ottawa in their actions. So it would be like suggesting there's vote splitting between the NDP and the UCP. They're two diametrically opposed parties on most issues. And frankly, so is the Republican Party. We want Alberta as an independent republic. The UCP wants us to stay in a serf-like relationship with Ottawa. And there is no vote splitting on that issue. You're either on one side or the other.
It just occurred to me that the NDP, they really have no real substance. It's all virtue signaling, ideologies. Janice Irwin holding up signs about her sexual preference at a hockey game. Stand with this group, stand with that group, and they've become the mess nobody wants to inherit. They've become the fear word that's used by other people to get support.
That's
like
it.
that. That would be embarrassing. Imagine being a Heed Nenshi and knowing that that's what your party was about. That would be just tough.
Division, pitting different groups against each other, woke ideology. That's what the NDP is and stands for. And the only reason that Albertans would choose to vote NDP over a conservative flavor of government is if that government is just governing out of touch or engages in corruption and incompetence. Conservatives, we defeat ourselves when we're in government by drifting away from our principles. If we govern conservatively, as we were elected to do so, we do rather well. It's when conservative governments stray from those principles and don't govern as conservatives, they find themselves in electoral trouble.
And we see that with the federal conservatives every election cycle,
Every
every
election.
time. They're
Yep.
trying to appease people that will never
And,
vote
and
for.
I'll tell you, Chris. I mean, I was in New York City at the Newsmax studio, and before I went on air, um, you know, it was. Well, you guys have conservatives up there in Canada, don't you? I said, yes, we do. And they said, but what we hear is that your conservatives in Canada are basically like Democrats. And I
Pretty
said,
much.
well, there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot
Yeah,
of truth
pretty
to
much.
that, unfortunately. So the conservative and name only issue is something that I think we're going to consistently have to tackle. And that's an ongoing battle. And the only way to do that is by holding every politician accountable. No politician I've ever met walks on water. They put their pants on the same way you and I do. It's when we start putting them up on that pedestal that everything they do is perfect and fine. They do no wrong. That's when we run into problems, because being able to be critical fairly and call into question their actions and hold them accountable is a necessary part of our democracy as a province, and it will be a even more necessary part as an independent Alberta Republic, that we enshrine those separations of power, the ability for citizens to hold the government accountable. Government is there to serve us, we the people, not
Not
the
in
other way around.
Canada.
And we have to change that. We have to change that as an independent republic.
Yep, I agree. Um, I've seen a couple questions come up, and I think I want to get into them right away because some of them are meat and potatoes of the independence movement, how things work. Here is a challenge. I believe this is from, it's a YouTube comment from Dan. Dan says, a referendum really means nothing. It is a starting point only and will not get past the vote, let alone Parliament and the many other barriers. And Cam
Okay.
Davies obviously doesn't know the process. What do you think of that?
Well, I would say this to Dan. I'm well versed in the process that Ottawa has scripted out for Alberta. And I don't give a damn what Ottawa has scripted out for Alberta.
Bingo.
There are only two components to Alberta independence, and that is will of the people and international recognition. That is all that's required. I don't care what Parliament has to say about it. I don't care what the Clarity Act has to say about it. These are rules that an abusive partner has written to keep Alberta in an abusive relationship, and we don't have to abide by that.
This is my comment when people say things like that. Oh, we need to amend the Constitution, this and that. I just say this. Oh, this. We're not asking.
We're not
This isn't
asking.
about asking.
No.
Yes,
No.
it would be great if we can do the polite path and use the Clarity Act and negotiate with the federal government and have a nice parting of ways with a handshake. But it doesn't have to be like that. And nobody's demanding that it be like that either. Right?
No.
Like Cam says,
it's
the will of the
simply,
people and recognition. That's it.
yeah, we're not going to tie ourselves into knots and jump through the hoops and loops that it's just like the whole APP question getting tied up in the court. This was legislation written by the UCP purposefully to allow Elections Alberta to tie APP up in court for months.
That's my friend Jason.
For months.
Smart guy. Yeah.
They wrote that on purpose to do that. And they were successful. They delayed us by half a year.
Yeah. You know what I just found out? I had a little bit of an argument online with somebody that said, "Oh no, we have to have a referendum in order to do the pension plan." I'm like, "No, we don't."
No, we don't.
Where does it say that? It does actually. Our government passed legislation that said that they have to have a referendum. So I'm like, okay, well that can be changed pretty easily. We don't have to. They're just
repeal that nonsense. It's ludicrous. It's so, again, we're being tied up by our provincial government putting loops and hoops on the way, and we're being tied up by the federal government putting hoops and loops on the way. All it takes is a backbone. If our provincial government scheduled a referendum on independence for this spring, I firmly believe Albertans would vote overwhelmingly in favor of it, and we would be on our way. We would have international recognition, and we begin immediately negotiating our exit from Canada. That's all it takes. It is that simple.
Yeah. Dan followed up saying that, do you think Canada would just lay down? And Dan, I got news for you. Canada, for all its faults, has always been one of the first nations to recognize other countries that declared their sovereignty, other regions. It's always been Canada that respected it. So I really have no doubt in my mind that if when Alberta does this, I don't see why Canada would not. I mean, that's they believe in democracy for the most part, and they respect the will of the people, or so they say. So how could they not? How could they not respect the wishes of Alberta and Alberta?
It'd be mighty hypocritical, wouldn't it?
It sure would. Yep, it
Yeah.
sure would. So on that note, what would you say to the people that call us traitors or we're engaging in treason or things like that? What do you say to those people?
Just for the sake of time, I got about 4 minutes here for you, Chris. But I did a debate with Tommy the Commie there a few weeks ago. The Toronto Star hosted it, and it was enlightening because I can tell you at least 5 or 6 times I was called a traitor. I was called treasonous. Thomas suggested that CSIS and the RCMP should be investigating me for treason and insurrection.
Oh, wow.
and all this stuff. So it was interesting that those are the talking points of the far left. That's what they're going to use against all of us. And this is the beauty of not having a leader of our movement. We don't need that. The American Revolution had 56 founding fathers. It's going to take many leaders stepping up to pull in this direction. They can't target all of us, and that's the beauty of this. And so, when they say that, it's hard not to just laugh because we're going through this process legally. We want the will of the people. If people expressing their views is treasonous or traitorous, I think they should go and look up what that actually means. It's a bit of a hilarious argument to call people who just want to be free and vote for their freedom treasonous.
That's a very good point.
So it's a bit like the gaslighting arguments. If you have a abusive partner or spouse trying to keep you in a relationship, it's the same thing.
That's a very good point. Well, I know you got other things to do, but I'm just you mentioned the 56 signatories. If this goes the direction where Ottawa does things to try and block us or whatever, I would happily be one of the signatories to a unilateral declaration of independence, as I know you probably would too. And so for the folks in Alberta that are worried about those sorts of things, we're not going to let that happen. If Alberta wants to leave, Alberta's going to leave, and that's it, plain and simple.
That's right.
Any closing thoughts before you take off to your fun stuff, Cam?
I just wish everyone at home Merry Christmas, and hope everyone gets time to spend time with family and continue the conversation of Alberta independence. I'm taking it with me wherever I go, and having those conversations, elevating the discussion on why it is we need to leave Canada and how we can go about doing that. And I would just encourage every single viewer at home, break out of the bubble. Sometimes we get stuck in our bubble of friends that all believe the same things we do. Find people who don't. Find people who are on the fence maybe this Christmas season that are just not aware or not engaged like you are, and have those conversations with them. That's how we're going to be successful. Talking to the same people over and over again that believe the same things you do, it puts you in a different headspace as to where you think the world is. And I think we have to break out of that a little bit going into the new year as we get closer to a referendum, and have those difficult conversations and say, you know what, here's some different perspectives on your pension plan. Here's why we need to collect our own taxes. Here's why we need to have our own police force and our own immigration. And here's what Alberta independence could be. And is this something you might want to support? Have those conversations with people who don't think like you do.
That's a really good point. We can't reach everybody, but you all can. So time to get to work. Right. One more thing, Cam. If people want to support you and back what you're doing, how do they do that?
AlbertaRepublicans.com. If you want to help be part of the or else, if you want to make sure that we get that referendum before any silly games are played with provincial elections or things of that nature, get involved. Sign up on AlbertaRepublicans.com. In the new year, we'll be announcing candidate recruitment. We'll be starting in Calgary and the donut around Edmonton, and we'll be going from there.
Awesome.
So thanks,
Right on.
thank
Well,
you very much. Appreciate your time.
Yep. Thanks for your time, Cam. Merry Christmas. Have fun,
Merry
and we'll
Christmas
see
as
you when
well.
you get back.
Thank you very much.
Well, there you go, folks. That was a nice short one, but that's fine because it's Friday night, and I'm sure everyone's got better things to do than look at my ugly mug. I just have one thing to reply to here. Dan's asking questions, and that's fantastic. One of the questions Dan asked was, what regions did Canada recognize? And I'm just going to leave you with two before I go. The first one is Kosovo, and the second one is Norway, Sweden. So have a look at those. Do a little digging. There's more than that. So yeah, enjoy your Friday night, folks. See you in the next one, which is tomorrow with our friend Jasper from Holland. So looking forward to that. Meow. Merry Christmas.